The rattling of an ancient Greyhound bus echoed across the Nevada desert as it pulled into Dusty Creek, population 847, where tumbleweeds had more social standing than most newcomers. Luna Martinez pressed her face against the grimy window, watching the collection of weathered buildings that somehow managed to call itself a town. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she clutched a battered leather suitcase that clinked mysteriously with every bump in the road. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Behind her, passengers dozed or stared at their phones, oblivious to the small miracle sitting in the seat beside Luna. A white goat, no bigger than a medium-sized dog, wearing wire-rimmed spectacles that caught the late afternoon sunlight streaming through the window. The goat's name was Oracle, and according to Luna's deceased grandmother's journal, he possessed an extraordinary gift that had been passed down through 7 generations of Martinez women. The bus wheezed to a stop outside Murphy's General Store, kicking up a cloud of red dust that seemed to hang in the air like a question mark. Luna gathered her courage, her suitcase, and Oracle's lead rope, stepping down into the scorching heat of a Nevada summer that felt like walking into an oven set to broil. Luna had never felt more out of place in her entire 28 years of existence. Fresh from the humidity and chaos of Miami, where she'd spent the last decade reading palms and tarot cards in a cramped storefront wedged between a Cuban sandwich shop and a nail salon, she now found herself in a landscape so alien it might as well have been Mars. The desert stretched endlessly in every direction, broken only by distant mountains that shimmered like mirages in the heat. Oracle bleated softly, adjusting his spectacles with one tiny hoof, a habit that never failed to amaze Luna, even after 3 years of witnessing it. The goat's previous owner, an eccentric old woman named Esmeralda who'd lived in a converted school bus, had left Oracle to Luna, along with a cryptic note about destiny and the importance of reading the signs. Luna had thought it was all nonsense until the first time she'd watched Oracle predict a thunderstorm by arranging seashells in a perfect spiral pattern on her kitchen table. The bus driver, a grizzled man who looked like he'd been driving the same route since the invention of the wheel, unloaded Luna's single duffel bag and gave Oracle a skeptical look. "You sure this is where you want to be dropped off, miss? Ain't much here but heat and heartbreak." Luna nodded, though doubt gnawed at her insides like a hungry coyote. She'd sold everything she owned, her apartment, her furniture, even her grandmother's collection of crystal balls, to buy a one-way ticket to Nevada and rent a small cabin on the outskirts of Dusty Creek. The decision had been impulsive, driven by a recurring dream that had haunted her for months. In the dream, she stood in a desert landscape holding Oracle's lead rope, while a voice whispered that her true purpose lay where the sagebrush met the sky. The bus pulled away in another cloud of dust, leaving Luna and Oracle alone on the cracked sidewalk. The silence was profound, broken only by the distant lowing of cattle and the whisper of wind through the sparse vegetation. Luna had grown accustomed to the constant noise of Miami, traffic, sirens, the pulse of salsa music from every corner, and this quietude felt almost oppressive. Murphy's General Store squatted before them, like a relic from another era, its wooden porch sagging under the weight of decades, and its hand-painted sign faded to near illegibility. Through the dusty windows, Luna could see shelves lined with canned goods and sundries, and behind the counter, an elderly woman watched them with undisguised curiosity. Luna took a deep breath, tasting dust and possibility in equal measure, and pushed through the screen door. A bell chimed overhead, its sound thin and lonely in the afternoon heat. The woman behind the counter was perhaps 70, with silver hair pulled back in a practical bun and eyes that held the accumulated wisdom of someone who'd seen everything the desert could throw at a person. "Afternoon," the woman said, her voice carrying the slight drawl that Luna was beginning to recognize as distinctly Nevadan. "You must be the Martinez girl who rented the Whitmore cabin. I'm Betty Murphy. Here's my store." Luna nodded, surprised that her arrival had been anticipated. In Miami, anonymity was as easy to maintain as breathing. Here, it seemed, everyone knew everyone else's business before it even became business. "Yes, ma'am, I'm Luna Martinez. And this is Oracle." Betty's eyes widened as she took in Oracle's spectacles, and Luna braced herself for the reaction she'd grown accustomed to over the years. But instead of skepticism or mockery, Betty's face broke into a delighted grin. "Well, I'll be hornswoggled. Dolores said you'd be bringing something special, but she didn't mention it would be wearing glasses." "Dolores?" Luna asked, confused. Dolores Whitmore owns the cabin you're renting. She's got what you might call the sight, if you know what I mean. Told me just yesterday that change was coming to Dusty Creek, and that it would arrive wearing spectacles. Betty chuckled, moving around the counter to get a better look at Oracle. Didn't think she meant literally. Oracle, as if understanding that he was the subject of discussion, straightened his tiny shoulders and pushed his spectacles up his snout with characteristic dignity. Luna had long since stopped questioning how a goat had learned to wear glasses, or why he seemed to understand human conversation better than most humans understood each other. "Is the cabin far from here?" Luna asked, hefting her suitcase. The mysterious clinking drew Betty's attention, and the older woman's eyebrows rose. "About half a mile up the road toward Thunder Ridge. But you'll be wanting supplies first, I expect. Not much out that way except sagebrush and solitude." Betty paused, tilting her head slightly. "That suitcase sounds interesting. If you don't mind my asking, what's making all that noise?" Luna hesitated. In Miami, she'd learned to be cautious about revealing too much too quickly. The fortune-telling business attracted its share of skeptics and con artists, and she'd developed a thick skin against both. But something about Betty's open curiosity and the mention of Dolores Whitmore's sight made her reconsider her usual guardedness. "Seashells," Luna said finally. "My grandmother's collection. I use them for readings." Betty's eyes lit up with understanding. "Ah, you're one of those kinds of folks. Well, honey, you've come to the right place. Nevada Desert's got more mysteries than a Saturday night poker game, and we've got our share of folks who see things others don't." Relief flooded through Luna like cool water. She'd been preparing for skepticism, possibly hostility, and instead found acceptance. "Thank you. That's really good to hear. Now, let's get you fixed up with some basics," Betty said, moving back behind the counter with surprising agility. "You'll need groceries, of course, and I'd recommend getting some extra water. Desert's no place to run short. And something for your goat friend here, though I suspect he's got particular tastes." Oracle bleated in what sounded remarkably like agreement, and Betty laughed. "Yep, thought so. Got some of Mabel Henderson's goat treats in the back. She makes them special for the ranchers around here." As Betty bustled around gathering supplies, Luna found herself relaxing for the first time since leaving Florida. The store had an Old West charm that felt both foreign and comforting, with its wooden floors worn smooth by generations of customers and shelves that seemed to contain everything from penny candy to horse liniment. "So what brings you to our little corner of nowhere?" Betty asked as she bagged Luna's purchases. "Not many folks choose Dusty Creek as a destination. Most people end up here because they're running from something or toward something they can't quite name." Luna considered the question. The honest answer was complicated. A mixture of recurring dreams, a growing sense that her life in Miami had reached a dead end, and an inexplicable pull toward the desert that she couldn't rationalize. Instead, she settled for a simplified version of the truth. "I needed a change," she said. "My grandmother always said the desert holds answers for those brave enough to ask the right questions." Betty nodded approvingly. "Wise woman, your grandmother. The desert's got a way of stripping away everything that doesn't matter, leaving you with just the essential truths. Of course, not everyone's ready for that kind of honesty." Oracle, who had been investigating a display of horse brushes with scientific curiosity, suddenly straightened and turned toward the front door. His spectacles caught the light as he tilted his head, listening to something only he could hear. Luna had learned to pay attention to Oracle's moods and instincts. They were rarely wrong. The bell over the door chimed again, and Luna turned to see a man silhouetted against the bright desert sun. As her eyes adjusted, she found herself looking at someone who seemed to have stepped straight out of a classic Western movie. He was tall and lean, with the kind of weathered face that spoke of years spent under the open sky. His hair was dark beneath a well-worn Stetson, and his eyes, when they met hers, were the deep green of sage after rain. But what struck Luna most was the way he carried himself. There was a quietness about him, a stillness that reminded her of the desert itself. He moved with the economic grace of someone accustomed to hard physical work, and when he removed his hat as he entered the store, Luna noticed the way his hair caught the light streaming through the windows. "Afternoon, Cody," Betty called out cheerfully. "Perfect timing. I'd like you to meet our newest resident. Luna Martinez, this is Cody Brennan. Runs the Shooting Star Ranch about 10 miles north of here. Cody nodded politely, but Luna caught the way his eyes lingered on Oracle with a mixture of confusion and wariness. "Ma'am," he said, his voice carrying a slight drawl that made Luna think of summer evenings and distant thunder. "That's quite an unusual traveling companion you've got there." Luna felt heat rise in her cheeks, partly from the desert warmth and partly from something else entirely. "This is Oracle. He's special." As if on cue, Oracle pushed his spectacles up his snout and fixed Cody with an unblinking stare. For a moment, the three humans stood frozen in a tableau that would have been comical, if not for the strange intensity of the moment. Then Oracle did something Luna had never seen him do before. The small goat walked deliberately to where Luna had set her suitcase, placed one tiny hoof on the leather handle, and began to bleat in a rhythmic pattern that sounded almost like a chant. His spectacles seemed to shimmer in the store's fluorescent lighting, and Luna felt a familiar tingle run down her spine, the same sensation she experienced when the veil between the mundane and the mystical grew thin. "What's he doing?" Cody asked, and Luna heard something in his voice that hadn't been there before. Not skepticism exactly, but a careful curiosity that suggested he was no stranger to unusual occurrences. "I'm not sure," Luna admitted, watching Oracle with growing fascination. "He's never done anything quite like this before." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Oracle's chanting grew more insistent, and he began to paw at the suitcase with increasing urgency. Luna looked at Betty, who was watching the scene with rapt attention, then at Cody, whose green eyes had taken on an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "Maybe," Luna said slowly, "he wants me to show you what's in here." She knelt beside the suitcase, aware that both Betty and Cody had moved closer. Oracle stepped back but continued his rhythmic bleating, now joined by a soft clicking sound as he tapped his hooves against the wooden floor in a complex pattern. Luna opened the suitcase. The afternoon light streaming through Murphy's windows caught the contents and transformed them into something magical. Hundreds of seashells filled the suitcase's interior, each one carefully wrapped in soft velvet and arranged according to some system that only Luna fully understood. There were conch shells worn smooth by decades in the Gulf Stream, delicate sand dollars that looked like nature's own currency, spiral shells that seemed to hold the ocean's secrets in their chambers, and countless others representing years of careful collection by Luna's grandmother and great-grandmother before her. But it wasn't just the shells themselves that drew attention. It was the way they seemed to catch and hold the light, creating patterns of shadow and illumination that shifted and danced as Luna moved the suitcase. Each shell told a story, held a memory, carried within its calcium carbonate curves the wisdom of tides and time. "My God," Betty whispered, leaning closer. "I've never seen anything like it." Cody said nothing, but Luna noticed the way his hands had stilled at his sides, the way his breathing had become carefully controlled. She'd seen that reaction before, in people who were trying to process something that challenged their understanding of the world. Oracle's chanting reached a crescendo, then stopped abruptly. In the sudden silence, the goat walked to Cody and gently butted his leg with his small head. When Cody looked down, Oracle pushed his spectacles up and fixed him with that unblinking stare again. "He wants you to choose one," Luna heard herself saying, though she wasn't entirely sure how she knew that. "One of the shells. He wants you to choose." Cody looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. "I don't understand." "Neither do I, exactly," Luna admitted. "But Oracle has never been wrong about these things. There's something he wants to show you. Or tell you. The shells, they hold memories. Impressions of the future. My grandmother taught me to read them. But Oracle..." She paused, watching as the goat settled himself primly beside the open suitcase. "Oracle sees things even I can't see." The silence stretched between them, filled with the weight of possibility and the sound of Betty's fascinated breathing. Finally, Cody stepped forward. His hand hovered over the collection of shells, and Luna noticed the way his fingers trembled slightly, whether from nervousness or something else, she couldn't tell. "How do I choose?" he asked quietly. "You don't," Luna replied, understanding flooding through her. The shell chooses you. Cody closed his eyes and let his hand drift over the collection. Luna watched, transfixed, as his fingers moved with unconscious purpose, drawn by some invisible force toward a particular corner of the suitcase. When his hand finally stilled, it was hovering over a shell Luna recognized, a perfect nautilus her grandmother had found on a beach in Mexico decades ago, its spiral chambers representing the eternal dance between past and future. "That one," Cody said, opening his eyes. "I can feel it, calling to me." "That sounds crazy, doesn't it? Number crazier than a goat wearing spectacles who predicts the weather," Luna said softly. She lifted the nautilus carefully from its velvet nest and placed it in Cody's palm. The moment their fingers touched, she felt a jolt of electricity that had nothing to do with static and everything to do with connection. Oracle bleated once, softly, and pushed his spectacles up his snout with satisfaction. Luna cradled the nautilus in both hands, feeling its smooth weight and the subtle vibrations that only she and Oracle seemed able to detect. "I need to read it properly," she said, "to understand what Oracle is trying to tell us." Betty, who had been watching the entire exchange with the wide-eyed fascination of someone witnessing genuine magic, cleared her throat. "Perhaps this is a conversation better had somewhere with more privacy," she suggested gently. "The cabin Luna's renting has a nice porch. Perfect for whatever this is." Cody looked from Luna to Oracle to the shell in his hands, and Luna could see the war being fought behind his green eyes. Logic battling against instinct, skepticism wrestling with curiosity. Finally, he nodded. "I have some time before I need to get back to the ranch. If you're sure about this." "I'm not sure about anything," Luna said honestly. "But Oracle is, and that's usually enough." 20 minutes later, Luna found herself walking up a dusty road toward a small log cabin that would be her home for the foreseeable future. Oracle trotted beside her on his lead rope, occasionally pausing to examine interesting rocks or plants with scholarly attention. Behind them, Cody followed in a battered pickup truck, having offered to transport Luna's supplies and suitcase. The cabin was smaller than Luna had expected, but charming in its simplicity. Built from local timber and stone, it perched on a small rise that provided views of the surrounding desert in all directions. A covered porch wrapped around the front and side, offering blessed shade from the relentless sun. Solar panels on the roof suggested that while the cabin might look rustic, it had been modernized for comfort. As Cody helped her carry her belongings inside, Luna marveled at how different this space felt from her cramped Miami apartment. The main room was open and airy, with exposed beams and a stone fireplace that would be welcome when winter arrived. Large windows looked out over the desert landscape, and Luna could already imagine Oracle holding court on the porch, his spectacles glinting in the morning sun. "It's perfect," she said, setting her suitcase carefully on the rustic dining table. "Exactly what I hoped for." Cody stood in the doorway, his hat in his hands, still clearly uncertain about what he'd gotten himself into. "About this reading," he said carefully, "I should probably mention that I'm not typically one for things that can't be explained." Luna smiled, recognizing the tone of someone trying to rationalize the irrational. "Most people aren't until they are. Would you like some water? I imagine Betty packed some in with the groceries." While Luna busied herself finding glasses and getting Oracle settled with a bowl of water on the porch, Cody explored the cabin's main room. She watched him through the windows, noting the way he moved with unconscious confidence, the way his hands traced the craftsmanship of the wooden furniture with appreciation. "The man who built this place knew what he was doing," Cody observed when Luna returned with the water. "Pete Whitmore was a master carpenter before he retired. Did all the work himself over the course of 3 summers. "Dolores Whitmore's husband?" Luna asked, remembering Betty's mention of the woman who supposedly had, quote, "the sight." Her late husband, yes. Good man. "Dolores has been struggling a bit since he passed 2 years ago. Renting out the cabin helps with expenses." Cody accepted the glass of water gratefully, downing half of it in one long swallow. "She'll be pleased to know you appreciate Pete's work." They settled on the porch, Luna in a wooden rocking chair and Cody on the steps, his long legs stretched out before him. Oracle positioned himself between them, pushing his spectacles up and regarding the nautilus shell with professional interest. Before we begin, Luna said, cradling the shell in her palms, I should explain how this works. The shells don't predict the future in the way most people think of prophecy. They reveal possibilities, potential paths, the echoes of choices not yet made. What Oracle sensed about you, what drew him to this particular shell, is something that exists in potential. Cody nodded slowly. Like looking at storm clouds and knowing rain is coming, but not knowing exactly when or how hard it'll fall. Exactly. Luna was surprised by how quickly he grasped the concept. You understand the desert, don't you? The way it holds secrets. The way it reveals them slowly to those who know how to listen. Been ranching this land for 15 years, Cody said quietly. You learn to read the signs. In the sky, in the way the cattle behave, in the color of the grass. My grandfather always said the desert talks to those with patience to hear it. Luna felt a spark of connection at his words. Here was someone who understood that the world held mysteries beyond the obvious, even if he'd never had cause to explore them. She closed her eyes and let her fingers explore the nautilus shell's spiral chambers, feeling for the subtle vibrations that would guide her interpretation. Oracle bleated softly, and Luna felt the familiar tingle that accompanied her clearest visions. Images began to form in her mind, not clear pictures, but impressions, emotions, glimpses of possibility. There's loss here, she said softly, her eyes still closed. Recent loss. Someone important to you is gone, and their absence has left you questioning everything you thought you knew about your future. Cody's sharp intake of breath told her she'd touched on something significant, but Luna continued, following the thread of insight wherever it led. You're at a crossroads, but you don't want to admit it. Part of you wants to hold on to the past, to the way things have always been. But the shell is showing me change, inevitable change that will reshape everything if you have the courage to embrace it. Luna opened her eyes and found Cody staring at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. The casual skepticism had vanished from his expression, replaced by something raw and vulnerable. My father, he said quietly. He died 6 months ago. Heart attack. Left me the ranch, but also left me wondering if I'm cut out for this life. If I want this life. The admission hung in the desert air between them, heavy with the weight of grief and uncertainty. Luna felt Oracle shift beside her, and when she looked down, she saw that the goat had arranged several small pebbles in a perfect spiral pattern at their feet. Oracle is showing us that life moves in cycles, Luna interpreted, following her instincts. Your father's death isn't an ending, it's a transition point. The shell is asking you a question. Are you ready to step into the role that's waiting for you, or will you let fear of change keep you trapped in the past? Cody was quiet for a long moment, rolling the nautilus shell between his palms. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the porch, and somewhere in the distance a hawk cried out as it rode the desert thermals. There's more, isn't there? He said finally. More that you're seeing. Luna nodded, surprised by his perceptiveness. The shell is showing me partnership. Not just business partnership, but something deeper. There's someone coming into your life who will help you find the answers you're seeking. Someone who brings new perspectives, new possibilities. She paused, feeling heat rise in her cheeks as another image flickered through her consciousness. Someone who sees the world differently than you do, but whose vision complements yours in ways you haven't imagined yet. Cody's green eyes met hers, and Luna felt that electric connection again, stronger this time, more insistent. Oracle bleated approvingly, and adjusted his spectacles with characteristic smugness. Stay, Cody said suddenly, the word seeming to surprise him as much as it surprised Luna. I mean, if Oracle can really see the future the way you say he can, then maybe you should stay. Help me figure out what these changes are supposed to look like. Luna's heart began to race. I was planning to stay anyway. I rented the cabin for 6 months. No, Cody said, his voice gaining certainty. I mean stay and work with me. At the ranch. I could use help with the administrative side of things. Bookkeeping, scheduling, dealing with the suppliers and buyers. My father always handled that, and I'm drowning in paperwork. But more than that. He paused, looking down at the nautilus shell. I think maybe Oracle saw something that I need to understand. And I think maybe you're the key to understanding it. Luna felt the world tilt slightly on its axis. This morning she'd been a stranger stepping off a bus in the middle of nowhere, armed with nothing but hope and a suitcase full of seashells. Now she was being offered the chance to build something new, something that could give meaning to the restless wandering that had brought her here. "There's something I should tell you first," she said carefully, "about Oracle, about what he can do, the fortune-telling, the shell readings. That's just the beginning. Oracle doesn't just see possibilities. Sometimes, when the conditions are right, he can see specific futures, real ones. And he's never been wrong." Cody studied Oracle, who had finished arranging his pebbles and was now lying in a patch of shade, his spectacles glinting with reflected sunlight. What kind of futures? Practical ones, mostly. Weather patterns, market prices for livestock, which horses will win races. My grandmother made a comfortable living following Oracle's predictions. But lately? Luna paused, remembering the dreams that had driven her to Nevada. Lately he's been seeing something different, something bigger. That's part of why I came here. What's he been seeing? Luna took a deep breath, knowing that her answer would either cement their tentative partnership or send Cody running for the hills. He's been seeing us together. Not just working together, but together. Building something that neither of us could create alone. And he's been seeing it with the same certainty he shows when he predicts rain. The silence stretched between them, filled with the evening songs of crickets and the distant lowing of cattle. Cody turned the nautilus shell over in his hands, its spiral chambers catching the last rays of sunlight. "I don't believe in destiny," he said finally. "I believe in hard work, careful planning, and making the best of whatever hand you're dealt." Luna's heart sank, but before she could respond, Cody continued, "But I also believe in listening when the desert speaks, and right now, it's telling me that you and Oracle didn't end up on my doorstep by accident." He looked up, meeting her eyes with a directness that made her pulse quicken. "So here's my offer. Stay at the ranch. Help me get the business side organized. Let Oracle do whatever it is he does. And if, at the end of 6 months, we've both figured out what this is supposed to be, then we'll make it permanent." Luna felt Oracle shift beside her, and when she looked down, she saw that he had arranged his pebbles in a new pattern. Not a spiral this time, but an arrow pointing directly at Cody. "I think," Luna said, unable to suppress a smile, "Oracle approves of your offer." Cody laughed, a sound that transformed his entire face. "Then I guess it's settled. Welcome to the Shooting Star Ranch, Luna Martinez." I have a feeling life just got a lot more interesting. As the sun set over the Nevada desert, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, Luna sat on the porch of her rented cabin and marveled at how quickly her carefully planned quiet retreat had become something else entirely. Oracle dozed beside her chair, his spectacles slightly askew but still somehow dignified, while in the distance, Cody's pickup truck disappeared down the dusty road toward his ranch. Tomorrow, she would pack up her seashells and her dreams and drive to the Shooting Star Ranch to begin a new chapter that she couldn't have imagined when she'd stepped off the bus that morning. Tomorrow she would learn whether Oracle's visions of partnership and possibility were as accurate as his weather predictions. But tonight, as the desert settled into its nighttime rhythm of cooling air and distant coyote songs, Luna allowed herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, she had found exactly what she'd been searching for, without knowing she was searching for it at all. Dawn arrived with the subtlety of a brass band in the Nevada desert, transforming the landscape from shadowy mystery to blazing reality in the space of minutes. Luna stood on the front porch of her cabin, watching the sun paint the distant mountains in shades of gold and copper, while Oracle methodically arranged a collection of morning pebbles into what looked suspiciously like a map of the local area. The goat had been restless all night, pacing the small cabin and adjusting his spectacles with unusual frequency. Luna had learned to interpret Oracle's moods as carefully as a meteorologist reads weather patterns, and everything about his behavior suggested that today would bring significant changes. 3 days had passed since her agreement with Cody Brennan, 3 days of preparation and anticipation that had left Luna alternating between excitement and terror. This morning she would drive to the Shooting Star Ranch and begin a new chapter that felt both inevitable and impossible. Her belongings were already packed and loaded into the ancient Honda Civic she'd purchased from Betty Murphy's nephew, a car that looked like it had survived several apocalypses but ran with surprising reliability. The suitcase of Seashells occupied the passenger seat, secured with careful precision, while Oracle's travel crate and supplies filled the back seat, along with Luna's modest collection of clothes and personal items. Oracle bleated softly and pushed his spectacles up his snout, then trotted over to where Luna stood watching the sunrise. He carried something in his mouth, a small piece of paper that he deposited at her feet with ceremonial gravity. Luna picked up the paper, recognizing her own handwriting from the previous evening. She'd written a list of questions about ranch operations, practical concerns about her new role that had kept her awake long past midnight. But Oracle had apparently decided to edit her list, using his tiny hooves to circle 3 specific items: water rights, winter feed storage, and something Luna had written almost as an afterthought: neighboring property disputes. "You think those are important?" Luna asked, studying Oracle's selections. The goat regarded her with the patient expression of a professor waiting for a slow student to grasp an obvious concept. Over the past 3 years, Luna had developed a healthy respect for Oracle's insights, even when they seemed to come from nowhere. His weather predictions had saved her from countless Florida thunderstorms, and his ability to sense when customers were about to cause trouble had protected her from more than one dangerous situation in Miami. If Oracle thought water rights and property disputes were worth her attention, she would be wise to listen. The drive to the Shooting Star Ranch took her deeper into the desert than she'd yet traveled, along a dirt road that seemed to exist more as a suggestion than an actual thoroughfare. The landscape grew increasingly dramatic as she drove, with red rock formations rising like ancient monuments from the sage-covered floor. In the distance, she could see the peaks of what her map identified as the Thunder Ridge Mountains, their summits already touched with snow despite the desert heat at lower elevations. Oracle traveled in his crate with unusual calm, his spectacles reflecting the changing scenery as they passed through terrain that looked like something from another planet. Occasionally he would bleat softly, and Luna noticed that these sounds always coincided with particularly beautiful vistas or interesting geological formations, as if the goat was providing commentary on their journey. The ranch buildings appeared gradually, emerging from the landscape with the kind of natural integration that spoke of generations of careful stewardship. The main house was a low, sprawling structure built from local stone and timber, its design echoing the horizontal lines of the desert while providing practical protection from wind and weather. A wide veranda wrapped around the front and sides, offering blessed shade and spectacular views of the surrounding country. Behind the house, a complex of barns, corrals, and outbuildings spoke of serious ranching operations. Luna could see cattle in distant pastures, dark shapes moving slowly through the morning heat, while closer to the buildings, horses grazed in paddocks that looked like they'd been placed with both practicality and aesthetics in mind. Cody emerged from one of the barns as Luna parked near the main house, and she felt the same jolt of awareness that had struck her during their first meeting. He wore the kind of clothes that announced themselves as serious work gear: faded jeans, worn boots, and a shirt that had seen countless washings. His hat cast shadows across his face, but Luna could see the smile that transformed his features as he approached her car. "Morning," he said, opening her car door with old-fashioned courtesy. "Hope you didn't have any trouble finding the place." "Oracle provided excellent navigation," Luna replied, gesturing toward the goat, who was already pushing against his crate door with obvious impatience. "I think he's eager to explore his new territory." Cody helped her lift Oracle's crate from the car, and the moment the door opened, the goat emerged with the dignity of royalty inspecting new domains. He immediately began a systematic survey of the immediate area, his spectacles catching the morning light as he examined everything from fence posts to flower beds with scholarly attention. "He's really something," Cody observed, watching Oracle's methodical inspection. "Does he always wear the glasses, or is that just for special occasions?" Luna laughed, feeling some of her nervousness dissolve in the face of Cody's easy acceptance. "Always. I've never seen him without them, not once in 3 years. The woman who left him to me said he'd been wearing them since he was a kid, the goat equivalent of a kid, I mean." And the fortune-telling thing? Cody asked, lifting Luna's suitcase from the car with careful respect for its fragile contents. How does that work exactly? Luna had fielded this question countless times over the years, but something about the way Cody asked it, with genuine curiosity rather than skepticism or mockery, made her want to give him a complete answer. It started with my great-grandmother, she explained as they walked toward the house. She lived on the Gulf Coast of Mexico and had what people called the gift. She could read the future in shells, in the patterns they made when cast on sand, in the way they caught the light. She passed the knowledge to my grandmother, who passed it to me. They reached the veranda, and Cody set down the suitcase with careful precision. But Oracle? Oracle is different, Luna admitted. He doesn't just help me read the shells, he sees things directly, specific events, exact outcomes. And he's never been wrong, not once. That's why I listen when he tells me to do something unusual. As if summoned by their conversation, Oracle trotted up the veranda steps and stationed himself beside Luna's suitcase. He pushed his spectacles up his snout and regarded Cody with the kind of intense stare that suggested important communications were about to occur. I think he wants to show you something, Luna said, recognizing the signs. Would you mind if I opened the suitcase again? Cody nodded, and Luna knelt beside the case, lifting the lid to reveal her collection of shells in their velvet-lined compartments. Oracle immediately walked to a specific section and began his rhythmic bleating. The sound that Luna had learned preceded his most accurate predictions. This time, however, Oracle's attention wasn't focused on a single shell. Instead, he seemed to be indicating a pattern, a relationship between several different specimens. Luna followed his gaze, noting which shells he emphasized with his tiny hooves, trying to understand what he was trying to communicate. Water? She said suddenly, the insight hitting her like revelation. He's showing me shells that represent water. Underground water, flowing water, contested water. She looked up at Cody, who had gone very still. The water rights issue on my list this morning. Oracle thinks it's more important than just a business concern. Cody was quiet for a long moment, his green eyes fixed on Oracle with new respect. There's been talk, he said finally. A development company from Las Vegas has been buying up properties in the valley, small ranches mostly. They're planning some kind of resort complex, and they're challenging existing water rights to support their project. Your water rights? Luna asked, though she already suspected the answer. Mine and 3 other ranchers. We've been fighting it in court for months, but the company has deep pockets and expensive lawyers. If they win... Cody trailed off, looking out over the landscape that represented generations of his family's work. If they win, the Shooting Star Ranch becomes worthless. Can't run cattle without water. Oracle bleated once, sharply, and pushed a specific shell toward Cody with his snout. Luna recognized it immediately, a large conch that her grandmother had always associated with hidden knowledge coming to light. He's telling you that you're going to find something, Luna interpreted, following her instincts. Evidence, maybe, or information that changes everything about the water rights dispute. Something that's been hidden but is about to be revealed. Cody picked up the conch shell, turning it over in his work-roughened hands. I've been over every document, every survey, every historical record related to this property. If there's something to find, I don't know where to look. Oracle adjusted his spectacles and trotted to the edge of the veranda, where he stood gazing toward a cluster of outbuildings near the eastern boundary of the ranch complex. His posture was unmistakable, the same focused attention he'd shown when leading Luna to important discoveries in the past. He wants to show you something, Luna said, closing the suitcase and standing. Something out there. The 3 of them walked across the ranch yard, passing through carefully maintained corrals and equipment areas that spoke of efficient operation and pride in workmanship. Oracle led the way with obvious purpose, occasionally pausing to adjust his spectacles or verify their direction, but never wavering from his chosen path. Their destination proved to be an old stone building that looked like it predated the main house by several decades. The structure was solid and well built, but clearly hadn't been used for its original purpose in many years. Farming equipment and supplies were stored inside, But the building's design suggested it had once served a different function. This was the original ranch house, Cody explained as Oracle began another systematic inspection of the area, built by my great-grandfather in the 1890s when he first claimed this land. My grandfather used it as a workshop after the new house was finished, and my father turned it into storage. Oracle's exploration grew increasingly excited as he circled the building, his bleating taking on the urgent tone that Luna associated with significant discoveries. Finally, he stopped at what appeared to be a completely unremarkable section of the stone foundation and began pawing at the ground with his tiny hooves. "There's something here," Luna said, kneeling beside Oracle to examine the area more closely. "Something buried or hidden." Oracle's never this insistent, unless he's found something important. Cody fetched a shovel from the equipment storage, and together they began to carefully excavate the spot Oracle had identified. The work was slow and careful, partly because they didn't want to damage whatever lay beneath the surface, and partly because neither of them was quite sure what they were looking for. After 20 minutes of cautious digging, Cody's shovel struck something that wasn't stone or soil. Further excavation revealed the corner of what appeared to be a metal box, heavily corroded but still intact. With careful maneuvering, they managed to extract the entire container, a document case that had been wrapped in oiled cloth and sealed with wax before burial. Oracle regarded their discovery with obvious satisfaction, pushing his spectacles up his snout and settling into a pose of patient waiting. Clearly, he expected them to open the case immediately. "This belonged to my great-grandfather," Cody said, examining the case with growing excitement. "I recognized the initials stamped in the metal, but I thought all his papers were in the family records." The case opened with some difficulty, the old hinges protesting decades of burial. Inside, wrapped in additional oiled cloth, they found a collection of documents that made Cody's eyes widen with disbelief. "Original land patents," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Survey maps from the territorial government. And this." He held up a water-stained but still legible document. "This is a water rights claim that predates anything in the county records." Luna watched as Cody studied the papers with growing amazement, his weathered hands gentle with the fragile documents. Oracle had positioned himself where he could observe both the papers and Cody's reactions, clearly pleased with the success of his archaeological expedition. "These documents establish water rights to the entire Thunder Creek watershed," Cody said, looking up at Luna with an expression of wonder. "If they're legitimate, and if they were properly filed, then no development company can challenge our access to that water." "Oracle knew," Luna said simply. "Somehow he knew these papers were here, knew you needed to find them." Cody carefully refolded the documents, his movements reverent with the knowledge that he was handling his family's salvation. How is that possible? How could a goat know about papers that were buried before he was born? Luna had wrestled with similar questions for years, never finding answers that satisfied conventional logic. "I've stopped trying to understand how Oracle knows things," she admitted. "I just trust that he does. And right now, he's telling you that those papers are going to solve your water rights problem." They spent the rest of the morning in Cody's home office, a comfortable room lined with ranch records and family photographs that told the story of 4 generations of stewardship on the Shooting Star Ranch. Using a combination of modern internet resources and old family documents, they were able to verify that the papers Oracle had led them to were not only legitimate, but represented a legal claim that superseded any challenges the development company might bring. Oracle supervised the research from a comfortable spot on the office couch, occasionally adjusting his spectacles when particularly important information was discovered. His satisfaction with the morning's work was evident in his relaxed posture and the way he seemed to smile behind his glasses. "I need to get these to my lawyer immediately," Cody said, carefully placing the documents in a protective folder. "But first, I need to know something." He turned to face Luna directly, his green eyes serious. "This morning, Oracle led us to exactly what we needed to save the ranch." "That can't be coincidence." Luna felt heat rise in her cheeks under the intensity of his gaze. "I told you, Oracle sees things. Important things, especially when they involve people he cares about." "People he cares about," Cody repeated slowly. "Is that what this is? Oracle cares about me." Luna looked at Oracle, who was regarding both humans with the patient expression of someone waiting for them to reach an obvious conclusion. "I think Oracle sees you as family," she said carefully. "And Oracle protects family." The silence that followed was broken by the sound of vehicles approaching the ranch house. Through the office window, Luna could see 2 trucks pulling into the yard, dust clouds marking their passage across the desert landscape. "That'll be Jake Morrison and Tom Bradley," Cody said, moving to the window. "The other ranchers involved in the water rights dispute. We're supposed to meet with the lawyers this afternoon to discuss our options." Luna watched as 2 men climbed from their trucks, both wearing the kind of clothes and expressions that marked them as serious ranchers, facing serious problems. Their body language spoke of frustration and worry, the weight of generations of family heritage hanging in the balance. "Maybe," Luna said, "you should show them what Oracle found." The meeting that followed was unlike anything Luna had experienced in her years of giving readings and interpreting Oracle's visions. The kitchen table became a conference room where 3 ranchers and their families' futures were discussed with the gravity of a military strategy session. Jake Morrison was a lean, weathered man in his 60s, whose family had worked their land for nearly as long as Cody's. Tom Bradley was younger, perhaps 40, but carried himself with the quiet authority of someone who'd inherited responsibility early in life. Both men listened with increasing amazement as Cody explained the morning's discoveries. "You're telling me," Jake said slowly, "that your goat led you to documents that prove superior water rights to the entire Thunder Creek watershed?" Oracle, who had been resting on a cushion near the kitchen window, pushed his spectacles up his snout and fixed Jake with a dignified stare that seemed to say, "Yes, that's exactly what happened, and you'd do well to respect it." "I know how it sounds," Cody replied, "but the documents are real, and they're legally valid." My lawyer confirmed it an hour ago. Tom Bradley studied the photocopies Cody had made, his expression shifting from skepticism to hope. "If these hold up in court, the development company doesn't have a leg to stand on. Our existing rights are all derivative from the original territorial claims, and these patents supersede everything." Luna found herself drawn into the conversation as the 3 ranchers discussed water flow patterns, seasonal variations, and the complex web of agreements that governed resource allocation in the desert. She'd never realized how precious water could be until she saw it through the eyes of people whose livelihoods depended on its availability. "There's something else," she said during a brief pause in the discussion. "Oracle has been showing me patterns related to the development company. I think there's more to their plans than just the resort complex." Jake leaned forward with interest. "What kind of patterns?" Luna glanced at Oracle, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "The shell readings suggest they're planning something much larger. Not just a resort, but a whole city, thousands of homes, golf courses, shopping centers. They need the water rights not just for their immediate project, but for future expansion that would completely transform this valley." The 3 ranchers exchanged looks that spoke of shared understanding and shared concern. This was their homeland, the landscape their families had preserved and protected for generations. The thought of seeing it transformed into suburban sprawl was almost physical pain. "Then we fight them with everything we have," Tom said quietly. "These documents give us the legal standing we need, but we'll need more than paperwork to win this battle." Oracle bleated softly and trotted over to where Luna sat at the kitchen table. He placed his front hooves on her lap and pushed his spectacles up, fixing her with the intense stare that meant he had something important to communicate. Luna felt the familiar tingle that preceded Oracle's clearest visions. Images flashed through her mind, legal documents, courtroom scenes, newspaper headlines, and running through it all like a golden thread, the theme of hidden knowledge coming to light. "Oracle is showing me more revelations," she said slowly, following the thread of insight wherever it led. "The documents we found today are just the beginning. There are other secrets, other hidden proofs that will expose what the development company is really planning." "What kind of secrets?" Cody asked, his voice tight with anticipation. Luna closed her eyes, letting Oracle's vision flow through her consciousness. "Financial records that show illegal activities, environmental studies that were suppressed, evidence of bribery and corruption that goes all the way to the state level." The kitchen fell silent except for the soft tick of an antique clock and the whisper of desert wine through the screen door. Oracle maintained his intense stare, his spectacles reflecting the afternoon light as he waited for Luna to receive the full scope of his revelation. The development company has been cutting corners, hiding problems, paying off officials to ignore regulations, Luna continued, the images becoming clearer as she spoke. But someone on the inside has been keeping records, documenting everything, and that person is ready to come forward. Jake Morrison leaned back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his weathered face. A whistleblower? More than that, Luna said, opening her eyes to meet Cody's gaze. Someone with access to all their files, all their communications. Someone who's been waiting for the right moment to expose the truth. Oracle bleated once, sharply, and pushed his spectacles up with finality. His message had been delivered, and now it was up to the humans to act on the information he'd provided. Tom Bradley gathered up the photocopied documents, his movements energized by new hope. I know a journalist in Reno who specializes in corruption cases. If what your goat is predicting comes true, she'll be very interested in this story. Our goat, Cody corrected quietly, and Luna felt her heart skip at the casual possessiveness in his voice. Oracle is part of the Shooting Star Ranch now, and everything he discovers benefits all of us. As the afternoon wore on, and the immediate crisis planning gave way to longer-term strategy discussions, Luna found herself marveling at how quickly her life had been transformed. 3 days ago, she'd been a stranger with a suitcase of seashells and an uncertain future. Now she was part of a community, a family of choice bound together by shared purpose and mutual protection. Oracle had positioned himself where he could observe all the humans in the room, his spectacles catching the changing light as the sun moved across the sky. Occasionally he would bleat softly when someone made a particularly good point, as if offering his approval for their planning. There's one more thing, Luna said as Jake and Tom prepared to leave. Oracle has been showing me that this fight will bring more than just legal victory. It's going to change all our lives in ways we can't imagine yet. Cody walked his neighbors to their trucks, and Luna could hear the murmur of their voices as they made final plans for the legal battle ahead. Oracle trotted out to supervise the farewells, his dignified presence somehow lending gravity to the occasion. When the other ranchers had driven away, leaving dust clouds to mark their passage across the desert landscape, Cody returned to where Luna stood on the kitchen porch. The sun was beginning its descent toward the western mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber that made the entire valley look like something from a dream. Thank you, he said simply, for everything. Oracle's discovery this morning. Your insights about the development company's plans. Your willingness to be part of this fight. Luna felt the weight of the moment, the significance of choices being made, and futures being determined. Oracle brought me here for a reason, she said. I'm beginning to understand that the reason might be bigger than just helping you with ranch administration. Cody stepped closer, close enough that Luna could see the flecks of darker green in his eyes, the way the desert sun had etched fine lines at their corners. What are you saying? I'm saying that Oracle doesn't just predict the future, Luna replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Sometimes he helps create it. And I think he's been creating something for us, something that started the moment he led me to this place. Oracle, who had been investigating a particularly interesting rock formation near the porch steps, looked up at exactly that moment and pushed his spectacles up his snout with obvious satisfaction. His timing, as always, was perfect. So what happens now? Cody asked, his voice rough with emotion that had nothing to do with water rights or legal battles. Luna smiled, feeling the certainty that came from trusting Oracle's visions completely. Now we fight for this land, this life, this future that Oracle has shown us, and we do it together. As the desert settled into its evening rhythm of cooling air and lengthening shadows, Luna realized that she'd found something in Nevada that she'd never even known she was looking for. Not just a home, but a purpose. Not just a partner, but a destiny that felt as inevitable as sunrise. Oracle had brought her to the Shooting Star Ranch to save more than just water rights. He'd brought her here to save herself, and in doing so, to help save everyone around her. The battle ahead would be challenging, but with Oracle's guidance and Cody's partnership, Luna felt ready for whatever the future might bring. 3 weeks had transformed the quiet rhythm of the Shooting Star Ranch into something resembling a war room. The kitchen table bore permanent stains from countless cups of coffee consumed during strategy sessions, and Luna's Seashells had found new purpose as Oracle guided them through each development in their legal battle against the Las Vegas Corporation. The whistleblower Oracle had predicted materialized in the form of Margaret Chen, a former environmental consultant for Meridian Development, who arrived at the ranch carrying 3 boxes of documents that painted a damning picture of corporate malfeasance. Her hands shook as she spread evidence across every available surface, but her voice remained steady as she detailed years of falsified reports and buried environmental impact studies. Luna sat beside Oracle on the living room couch, watching the goat's reaction to each revelation. His spectacles caught the morning light streaming through the windows as he observed Margaret with the intense focus he reserved for people whose futures were about to change dramatically. When Margaret finished her presentation, Oracle bleated once and pushed a specific shell toward her with his snout, a small spiral that Luna's grandmother had always associated with courage rewarded. "He's telling you that speaking out was the right choice," Luna interpreted, noting the way Margaret's shoulders relaxed at the words. "Your evidence will expose everything, but more importantly, it will protect the land and the people who depend on it." Cody stood at the window, silhouetted against the desert landscape that represented generations of his family's devotion. His green eyes held a mix of determination and something deeper, a recognition that the battle they were fighting was about more than water rights or family heritage. It was about preserving a way of life that honored both the land and the people who worked it. "The hearing is scheduled for next Friday," he said, turning back to face the room full of allies who had gathered to support their cause. Jake Morrison and Tom Bradley flanked Margaret at the table, while Betty Murphy had closed her store early to attend what she called the most important meeting in Dusty Creek's history. Oracle adjusted his spectacles and trotted over to Luna's suitcase, which had taken permanent residence in the corner of the living room. His movements carried the purposeful energy that always preceded his most significant predictions, and Luna felt the familiar tingle of anticipation as she opened the case to reveal her collection of shells. This time, Oracle's attention focused on a section of the collection that Luna rarely used, shells that her grandmother had reserved for reading the deepest currents of fate and destiny. The goat's bleating took on a musical quality as he indicated shell after shell, creating a pattern that spoke of culmination and transformation. "Oracle is showing me the outcome," Luna said, her voice growing stronger as the vision became clearer. "The hearing will expose more than just Meridian Development's crimes. It will reveal a network of corruption that reaches into the highest levels of state government, triggering investigations that will protect not just our valley, but dozens of other communities facing similar threats." Margaret Chen leaned forward, her dark eyes bright with hope. "Will it be enough? I've been carrying this evidence for 2 years, afraid to come forward because I knew they'd destroy my career." Oracle pushed his spectacles up and fixed Margaret with a steady gaze that seemed to convey infinite reassurance. Then he did something Luna had never seen before. He carefully selected 3 shells from the collection and arranged them in a perfect triangle at Margaret's feet. "Protection, vindication, and new beginnings," Luna interpreted, feeling tears prick her eyes at the beauty of Oracle's message. "Your courage will be rewarded not just with victory, but with opportunities you never imagined. The environmental consulting firm that's been trying to recruit you will offer you a partnership after the hearing." The afternoon dissolved into detailed preparation, as they organized evidence, rehearsed testimony, and coordinated with the team of lawyers who had taken their case pro bono after learning about the scope of Meridian's deception. Oracle supervised every discussion, occasionally contributing soft bleats of approval when strategies aligned with his visions of the future. As evening approached and their allies departed to prepare for the crucial hearing, Luna found herself alone with Cody on the ranch house veranda. The desert stretched before them in shades of purple and gold, the same landscape that had welcomed her arrival weeks ago but now felt like home in ways she'd never experienced before. "Are you nervous about tomorrow?" Cody asked, settling into the chair beside hers. Oracle had positioned himself between them, his spectacles reflecting the last rays of sunlight as he gazed out over the land they were fighting to protect. "Terrified," Luna admitted. "Not about the hearing, but about what comes after. Win or lose, everything changes from here." Cody reached for her hand, his calloused fingers intertwining with hers in a gesture that had become as natural as breathing over the past weeks. "Oracle brought you here for a reason. he said quietly. "I've stopped questioning what that reason might be, and started trusting that he knows something we don't." Oracle bleated softly and pushed his spectacles up, then trotted to the edge of the veranda, where he began arranging small pebbles in an intricate pattern. Luna had learned to read these stone configurations as carefully as she read her grandmother's shells, and this particular arrangement spoke of completion and new beginnings intertwined. "He's showing us that the hearing is just the beginning," Luna said, studying Oracle's work. "The real future starts after we win." "When we win," Cody corrected, his voice carrying absolute certainty. Oracle hasn't been wrong yet. The hearing took place in the Carson City Courthouse, a building that seemed designed to intimidate with its marble columns and soaring ceilings. Luna carried her suitcase of shells while Oracle traveled in a specially designed carrier that allowed him to observe the proceedings while maintaining the dignity appropriate to his role as a mystical advisor. The courtroom filled with supporters from across the valley, ranchers, townspeople, and environmental advocates who understood that the outcome would set precedent for similar battles throughout the West. Meridian Development's legal team occupied an entire section with their expensive suits and briefcases, projecting the kind of corporate confidence that assumed victory through superior resources. But they hadn't counted on Oracle. As Judge Patricia Hawkins called the session to order, Oracle pushed his spectacles up and fixed his attention on the opposing counsel with an intensity that made several lawyers visibly uncomfortable. Luna had positioned herself where she could interpret Oracle's reactions, and the goat's body language suggested that revelations were imminent. The presentation of evidence unfolded like a masterclass in environmental law. Margaret Chen's documents painted a devastating picture of systematic deception, while the historical water rights documents Oracle had discovered provided unshakable legal foundation for the rancher's claims. But the moment that changed everything came when Oracle began his rhythmic bleating, the sound that always preceded his most accurate predictions. Luna felt the familiar tingle of vision as Oracle's message flowed through her consciousness. She saw courtroom scenes yet to unfold, headlines that would expose corruption at the highest levels, and running through it all like a golden thread, the theme of truth triumphant over power. "Your Honor," Luna found herself saying, rising from her seat with the confidence that came from absolute certainty, "I believe there's additional evidence that the court should consider." Judge Hawkins looked surprised but intrigued. "What kind of evidence, Ms. Martinez?" Luna opened her suitcase and selected the large conch shell that had first revealed the hidden documents. "Oracle has been showing me that Meridian Development's corruption extends beyond what we've already presented. There are recorded conversations, financial transactions that prove bribery of state officials, and evidence of other communities where similar tactics were used." The lead attorney for Meridian Development shot to his feet. "Objection, Your Honor. This is completely irregular. The witness is claiming to receive information from a goat." Oracle pushed his spectacles up and regarded the attorney with what could only be described as professional disdain. Then he bleated once, sharply, and trotted to where Margaret Chen sat in the witness section. "Actually," Margaret said, pulling out her phone with hands that trembled with excitement, "I've been waiting for the right moment to reveal this. I recorded several conversations between Meridian executives and state officials. I also have copies of wire transfers that show payments made to influence permit approvals." The courtroom erupted in whispers as Margaret connected her phone to the court's audio system. The conversations that followed painted a picture of corruption so extensive that Judge Hawkins called for an immediate recess to contact the state attorney general's office. During the break, Oracle accepted congratulations from their supporters with characteristic grace, adjusting his spectacles and maintaining the dignified composure appropriate to someone who had just orchestrated the exposure of a criminal conspiracy. "How did you know?" Cody asked Luna as they stood in the courthouse corridor, surrounded by the controlled chaos of reporters and legal teams scrambling to understand the implications of what they'd just witnessed. "Oracle showed me," Luna said simply. "But more than that, he showed me that truth has its own power, its own momentum. Once it starts moving, nothing can stop it." The hearing resumed with a series of revelations that sent shockwaves through Nevada's political establishment. The recordings Margaret had provided triggered immediate investigations into multiple state agencies, while the historical documents Oracle had discovered became the foundation for legislation protecting water rights throughout the region. Judge Hawkins's ruling was swift and comprehensive. Meridian Development's permits were revoked, their water rights challenges dismissed, and their executives faced criminal charges for fraud and bribery. The ranchers' water rights were confirmed in perpetuity, and the entire Thunder Creek watershed was designated as protected land. But the victory celebration at the Shooting Star Ranch that evening was tempered by the knowledge that their battle had been part of something larger, a fight for the soul of the American West that would continue in other courtrooms and other communities. Oracle positioned himself on the veranda where he could observe the gathering crowd of supporters, his spectacles reflecting the light from dozens of lanterns that had been strung between the porch posts. His satisfaction with the day's outcome was evident in his relaxed posture and the way he seemed to smile behind his glasses. "So what happens now?" Betty Murphy asked, raising a glass of champagne in toast to their victory. "Do you go back to reading fortunes, or have you found a new calling?" Luna looked around at the faces of people who had become family over the past weeks. Ranchers and townspeople united by their love for the land and their commitment to protecting it for future generations. Oracle had brought her here to be part of something larger than herself, and she finally understood what that something was. "I think," she said, feeling Cody's arm slip around her waist, "Oracle has shown me that home isn't a place you find. It's a future you build with the people you love." Cody turned to face her fully, his green eyes serious in the lantern light. "Does that mean you're staying? Not just until the water rights are settled, not just for the ranch work, but permanently?" Luna felt Oracle's approving bleat before she heard it, and when she looked down, she saw that the goat had arranged a perfect circle of pebbles at their feet, the symbol her grandmother had always associated with promises kept and dreams fulfilled. "Oracle brought me here to find my future," she said, reaching up to touch Cody's face. "And my future is wherever you are." The kiss that followed was witnessed by 30 people, one mystical goat, and a desert landscape that held the promise of generations yet to come. Oracle adjusted his spectacles with obvious satisfaction, then settled into his favorite spot on the veranda to observe the celebration that would continue long into the Nevada night. 6 months later, Luna stood in the same spot where she'd first encountered Oracle's vision of their shared future. The desert bloomed with unexpected wildflowers, a reminder that even the harshest landscapes could nurture beauty when the conditions were right. Her wedding dress was simple but elegant, chosen more for its ability to move with desert winds than for fashion statements. Oracle, wearing a tiny bow tie that complemented his spectacles, served as ring-bearer with the dignity appropriate to someone who had orchestrated the entire romance. His gift for seeing the future had evolved into something even more remarkable, the ability to help create the futures he envisioned. As Cody took her hand and they spoke vows that promised partnership in all the adventures to come, Luna marveled at the journey that had brought her from a cramped Miami storefront to this moment of perfect completion. The suitcase of Seashells rested nearby, no longer tools of divination but treasured reminders of the path that had led her home. Judge Hawkins, who had offered to perform the ceremony as thanks for their role in exposing the corruption case, spoke words about love and commitment, while Oracle arranged wedding petals and patterns that spoke of infinite possibility. "The future," Luna whispered to Cody as they were pronounced husband and wife, "is going to be amazing." Oracle bleated his agreement, pushed his spectacles up one final time, and settled back to observe the new chapter he had helped write in the ongoing story of the Shooting Star Ranch. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.